Jonathan Chick back with you with another episode of Shtisel Man, and today I believe this will be hopefully one of my most powerful shares and something I consider a very important piece of understanding, not just of course of Shulem Shtisel and his relationship with Akiva, but also how fathers and sons and mothers and daughters and parents and children interact both in a positive way or unfortunately potentially a negative way. So we're going off on Shtisel Season 2, Episode 5. And this, to me, again, was an incredibly powerful scene. Akiva, who's been, broken or put down, or perhaps even you could say eviscerated by his father Shulem in various ways, considering himself, like the episode starts off with him being called a no-goodnik, basically, a lo yitzlach in Hebrew, which is someone who's just simply unsuccessful, a failure, and his father Shulem reinforces this view. Akiva tells his father about the fact that he's getting this award from Kaufman, from the special award for the new emerging artist of the year. And there's going to be this whole reception, and he's going to speak, and the whole thing. Tells his father about it, tells Shulem about it, and Shulem seems nonplussed. He seems not interested. And yet, Shulem decides later to show up. As we see from the scene, he had a whole agenda that was clearly not anything to do with his own son's gifts or his own son's special talent or whatnot. He goes, and Akiva's asked to speak, and Akiva ends up being in a very compelling way, a little self-deprecating, but very sensitive and very amusing and very collegial in his speaking, and yet, and that's going well, and then all of a sudden Shulem takes over and basically pushes his son aside and demands that that people start giving money, or makes a pitch, a fundraising speech for his cheder, for his school. This is really off the reservation. This is really crossing a huge line. Not only does he embarrass his own son, he embarrasses himself, doesn't realize it, creates a whole scene inappropriately at the reception, completely steals the thunder of his own son. And this is a amazing exhibit, not of art, but of narcissism. Incredible misunderstanding of the relationship he has with his child. And it is a devastating scene, in my opinion. A father and a son, or a parent and a child, need to develop a relationship that allows the child to fly, to grow, that there's room for both. In Shulem's world, there's only room for him. The 4 steps I learned from a great mentor of mine years ago, that there are 4 steps that happen between a parent and child. The first step, when a child is very young, is do for. The next step, when a child is getting a little older, do with. The next step, as a child gets older still, is stand back and admire. And finally, the last step is mastery. Mastery, so if you know a child, if you're teaching a child to tie his shoes, so first of all, you're doing it for. Then you do it with him or her. And then you stand back and admire. You stay there. You stay with them while they are tying their shoes. You're not just sort of like letting them be on their own yet. You stay with them, but you're not doing it for them. You're standing back and admiring, giving them positive reinforcement. And finally, the child achieves mastery, where they are able to tie their shoes by themselves and have the feeling of accomplishment and feeling of pride and feeling that their parent loves them and parent cares about them. Unfortunately, in the case of Shulem and in the case of Akiva and in the case of many, many parents and children, the parent feels there's no place for the child. The parent feels that only he or she must reign. And only when the person, for example, would pass away would the child be able to emerge as his own being or her own being. And this is tragic. You know, you have situations where a person might stay, for example, a mama's boy. I know people who, again, I'm not judging anyone, but someone who stayed single for 60 years because he took care of his mom. And at 60, then it's really too late at that point to really, it's never too late, and he remained a bachelor his whole life. Not that there's anything particularly wrong with that per se, but the idea that you're not just living for the next person or even for the parent, you're living also for yourself, and number one for yourself, because self-preservation and self-care has to come first. So again, we've talked about this before in a different episode with the eyeglasses, but honoring their father and mother is a tremendous commandment, but not at the expense of one's own life or one's own sanity. So this scene is just so powerful in its depiction of a father not having a place in the same room with his own son. Now, Shulem we might have sympathy for Shulem in perhaps later episodes or earlier episodes. There are flashes of his kindness because, of course, he's not an evil person. He's just a troubled person, very troubled and unhealthy in many ways. Will Akiva and Shulem find ultimate redemption in future episodes? That you will have to see, those who are watching along with me here. But for this episode by itself, it's a devastating crush for Shulem in his journey to be whole and his journey to be his own man and to live a life of mastery. We'll be back with more next time. Thank you.